Magcale, and this is our podcast called Fireside Leadership. Please welcome my co-host, beautiful Janice Lee over here.
Hello.
So this is our first podcast, and therefore we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves and why we're doing it before we run into our regular episodes. So my lovely co-host, Janice Lee, please tell us, what is Fireside Leadership all about?
Okay, so we really wanted to come together, Lisa and I, because we both have experience in some corporate and business circles, and we really wanted to talk about, well, share our experiences and lessons in leadership from people that we've learned from over the years, and how do they incorporate leadership? How do they learn about leadership through their experiences? It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be more informal. We're going to take you basically on a journey from some of the great people that we've met over the course of the years. And, Lisa and I are good friends. So we really wanted to be able to tap into people that maybe not everybody would have access to and the lessons that they have access to. So that's basically kind of it in a nutshell.
I love it. Thanks for being so concise about that. I think when people are stretched for time, being a good communicator is really important. So that is our why and what we're doing. And again, just to reinforce you might not have access to the information, and in a casual way, helping and supporting one another to grow. So Janice did mention that we're friends. So I wanted to just tap into that and talk a little bit about how we know one another and why we committed to doing this together. So Janice, I think we've known one another now since, I want to say 2015. So like 5 years.
That's about right. 2015.
5 years. And happy to say, like, personal development brought us together and professional development brought us together. A lot of training with leadership of self. And we've transitioned quite a bit over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk a little bit about that and what our journeys led us to, like what we want to bring and what people can expect as a result of our journeys?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, we met 2015. Just a little bit of background. At that time, I was in a corporate career. I was in a really big company, multinational, what other people would probably see as an enviable position. And by all means, I should have been super happy, but there was something that was missing and there was something more that I wanted to do. And so that's how I ended up connecting with Lisa. We kind of met over these personal development kind of courses and circles of people. And then over time, I realized that, it's great to pursue things that you love, and it's great to take initiative and risk and do different things. So that's kind of how I kind of transitioned out of what I was doing then, corporate, into something on my own. So, working as a coach. And then I know that Lisa, she's been around doing business on her own for a long time. And so we just had a really good connection in terms of like just some of the things that we wanted to talk about, wanted to like how to represent not just female leaders, but just any leaders, like people who feel more empowered to take over their lives, right? So we really wanted to share more of that with you. So that's kind of a little bit about me and my story. What about you, Lisa? What would you share with people, or what would you want them to know about you?
Well, first of all, I really do love business. Like, I don't know a lot of people who just love the mechanics and the structure and the building and the interactions. Like, I love almost all of it end to end. It's truly fascinating to me. And I know that there's people drive business. And so when I got into personal development in a real way, just before we met, the connectivity between human and the structure of business was even more intriguing to me. Like, I get, especially during these pandemic times, that the economy is at the foundation of all of it, right? Like the money, the people, and what are we going to do? So I think in 2015, I was still pretty stable in the businesses that I was in, and I was moving into focusing more into personal and professional development. And since then, I think I have met a range of people that are leaders in small businesses all the way into enterprise. And now in 2020, I really want to showcase all of these people and their good experience and spread the wellness. I think you had said something to me early on when we were sort of still formulating this idea. And it was, if I can find it here, it was like, how do you get out of a prison if you don't know that you're in one?
Yeah.
And so that mindset question is like, what is everyone's prison and where do they want to get to go? And how do we get to support them to get there? That's kind of like everything in a nutshell for me. So it transformed from just operating the back end of the business to really highlighting who the leaders are. What is it going to take? Like helping them identify where they want to go, that awareness, labeling it, and then experiencing it. And then like, what did you have to let go in order to get there? So it's been a theme for me probably over the past year. And so jumping into this with you is like so super exciting because I'm like, what are we going to create? So again, sorry to say it.
No, I love that. I actually wanted to, as you were saying that, it reminded me of another reason why I wanted to partner with you on this. It's because, you know what, we go through, especially in like enterprise businesses, if you're working corporate, if you're listening, if you're one of those people, you know, we get caught up in this idea of like it has to look a certain way. And what I really wanted to bring to light is that, you know, there's so many different styles of leadership and forms of leadership, and the things that you read about and you think like textbook I need to follow, it's not necessarily true for you, right? So I want people to start thinking about like and adopting like, well, what would work for you? What would be a good leadership style for you? But learning from different people and then just creating your own version of what that looks like. So I think that for me is really important as well.
That's awesome. I love high touch customized services, right? Like I'm all about that, right? All the businesses, they're all high touch and they're all customizable, right? Because it's not cookie cutter. So I love that we're going to do that. So I think one of the things is like, what can people expect to take away? I think we've touched on that a little bit already. Anything that you want to add? So we talked about tools, lessons, takeaways from people.
Yeah.
I like the whole idea of fun too. To
Yeah,
me,
it's definitely got to be fun. Otherwise, you're just listening to half an hour to two people talk. But I do believe that, like with anything, like it's great to have these conversations, and we're going to hear some great stories from the lineup of interviewees we've got coming up. And so, you know, these range from like really big international corporations to people that brought, you know, started their own businesses to build it into something quite large. But I think a big part of it will be, you know, I'm now just literally lost my thought. I was like had it on the tip of my tongue. But how do you integrate this kind of into your life? Like making sure there's some actionable takeaway. Like what is a lesson that you can learn from each of these interviewers or interviewees that you can apply right now into your life, whether it works for you or not?
right. And also to be open to practicing some of the things that you learn, right? So I think when I'm hearing you talk about, you know, it doesn't have to be textbook. There's also this thing called habit, right? Where you're doing the same thing every day and it's been working for you. So why would you want to jig that? Well, what you want to is over here and you're doing this over here and it's sustaining that, but you want to be over here. There's got to be a shift that gets you from this result to that result, right? That habit, right? So being open. So let's talk a little bit about who this particular podcast, Fireside Leadership,
Yeah.
is going to benefit, right? If we were to give a few pointers of, you want to tune in not just because you're friends with us, not just because, you know, like watching us talk because we're funny, but seriously, what type of person is going to want to listen in, you know, for 20 minutes to half an hour to 45 minutes? Like we're still sort of formulating that. But who do you think is like, who would you invite to come?
Who would I invite? So I would say I would invite people that, you know, you might have a corporate or very business background. You might work for a large organization. You've maybe doing it for a long time now. And I would say, you know, you're probably pretty successful in what you're doing already. But there's always this feeling that, you know, you may have reached a certain plateau or you're looking for a different way to kind of get a little unstuck. Not to say that, you know, you're not happy where you are, but you know there's more out there. You know what, there's more to be learned, there's more to be experienced. Maybe you can learn a new tool. So these are the kind of people that I would say should definitely tune in. You know, you're probably hearing a lot of, I'm assuming that you've already read a lot of books. You know a lot about business, or you've read biographies, right? We've all done the same thing, but like how about from coming from a different lens, hearing different leadership lessons, and hopefully hearing something new that you haven't heard before, and being able to apply it in your life.
Right. I love it. I think leadership can go through, I mean, we're talking enterprise business right now. However, it can go right down to leadership of self.
For sure.
If you are starting your own business, again, that type of leadership. If you're selling the business that you started to a multinational corporation, there's so many stages of leadership. So for me, it's, as I was listening to you talk, I was like, who do I invite? And I was like, any leader that knows that there's a gap and they want to close that gap. I think that's going to be my, like, if I know that you're a leader
Hmm.
or there is a thing about leadership that you actually want to harness, particularly in, I think we're really looking at enterprise and corporate people
Sure.
that know that there is a gap, either a yearning that you might have or an unfulfilled passion, whatever that gap is. I would invite them to tune in and listen to whatever the topic is of the day to see if they are inspired to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think
Right?
that's really good. You tapped into something really amazing, which is like it's great to listen to some of these podcasts and think like, oh, that sounds great. I wish I could do that. Are you willing to actually put into practice some of the tools that we're going to talk about? Because that's the point. That's the benefit, right? Like you'll be able to get out of your comfort zone and actually try something different and perhaps like see even better result, right?
Yeah. So we are doing so well for time, which I always knew you and I would really know how to nail things in a short amount of time, because I think most people are really busy. And to be able to carve out half an hour or 45 minutes is a
Hmm.
lot harder to do than 15 minutes.
For sure.
Right. And so I think we're approaching that mark right now. If there's one thing that you would want people to take away from getting to know us and the intro of the podcast, what would it be?
Um, I think for me personally, and you can chime in if you feel the same way, leadership was kind of a journey. It wasn't like a destination. I didn't like, I know that I'm evolving continuously as I learn from others, and I will make mistakes, but I'm learning from them. And one of the things that I've gotten more comfortable with is the fact that like I am not perfect, and like throwing off these shackles of having things to be perfect the first time was like a huge lesson in leadership for me. And I hope that if you're tuning in, if you're listening to these, like to recognize that don't compare yourself to any of these people that you're going to be hearing from. They had their own journeys. They had the ups and downs and the things that you and I are both going through. So just listen in with the intent that like I'm just going to learn from these people. And you know what? Leadership and our even our own personal growth and development, it never stops. So, tune in and listen and learn and share, and hopefully you'll get something really great out of it.
Yeah. I'm certain that they will get something really great out of it. I mean, in
Yeah.
everything that we show up for, there's always, even if it's a golden nugget, there
Yeah.
is always even the nugget. And if you're willing to accept the nugget and apply the nugget, then you're gonna benefit from it. One thing did pass my mind. I just want to sneak this question in really, really
Yeah.
fast. Um, for me, there's this, who am I to be the person to have a fire chat leadership conversation? Okay, so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there are people who have known me, people who have, might have opinions, and this is really stretching outside of my comfort zone, like going on to YouTube or into LinkedIn and claiming this spot of we're going to be hosting fireside leadership conversations. Um, how do you deal with that? Because I know one of your big things is like thinking into results.
Yeah.
What and I actually think we're going to do really well. I'm just, again, this is me being a leader, acknowledging I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone and I'm okay with it. And I'm not saying that I'm a leadership expert. I'm saying we're going to share the expertise that we have from fellow
Yeah.
leaders.
I kind of see myself as in this instance, I'm kind of like a sharer messenger of information. Like I'm like a facilitator of bringing these words of wisdom from whoever we're interviewing into a more public space. And like I'm in the same boat as you. I'm like, I'm by no means, I won't say like, I don't consider myself like, oh, I'm at the epitome of leadership and that I know all these things, but I am curious, right? And so part of this podcast is to like interview those people, and like the questions that we're going to be asking hopefully are people questions that other people have as well, so we're representing our audience and hoping that like let's get from these people as much as we can. So it's almost like why I like Fireside Leadership as this title is because I've been so fortunate in my career to be exposed to some really great leaders and have a lot of experience, and I've done actual firesides with them and we're able to actually ask their experiences and to have that intimacy. I think not everyone has the luxury of those kind of connections. And so if we can bring that closer to people, I think that's a great thing. It just exposes them to just more lessons and more people in different perspectives. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. And like, how do I deal with it? Well, I think of myself as a messenger, I would say. I'm not the expert. And even if I get like 20 years from now, develop more leadership experience, I'm still not the expert, right? There's someone out there that's going to have more experience than me. So I'm actually really fine saying that.
Thank you for chiming in on that, because it was underneath the surface, and I think that is an example of why I'm okay taking this position with you.
Yeah,
I am demonstrating the work that's required to be my best self, which is to be a leader of
yeah,
self and to be a leader of the businesses that I represent and to be a leader in my home, to be a leader
for
in,
sure.
and so I'm excited for this journey.
I'm
Really,
excited for
yeah.
you as well. No, I wanted to say, like, what is it that you would want to share with people about your thoughts on this podcast? And also, I know that you're doing other ones as well. You're amazing. You're gonna like crush it in all of them. Like, what makes
Excited.
this particular one? How does it fit in with all the things that you love?
So I love business. So eLiaise is the VA business and Delegate Wisely Consulting is CRM. It was a natural progression from telephony, which is going to be minimalized or extinct, I want to say, in 10 years almost. So the natural progression was to focus on the technology and the brand. So CRM is what we have been inputting our data into. Salesforce was the next logical thing. And the idea behind that particular organization is all about Ohana family working together, which is very much the way that I operate, generally speaking. And so those are two smaller ones that will be highlights of what is happening there. The other one is empowering single mothers. So I am a single mom, and that was something that was birthed like in 2012. And
Mm-hmm.
so because I jumped into podcasts, I was just like, I just want to spread wellness. Like in this pandemic, if there was one thing that was clear, it was illness spreads.
Right.
Okay. Well, so does wellness. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm going to hold that position. And yes, so physically for me, I'm in the middle of this, like releasing 100, not just weight, but that is really more about health and wellness. So yeah, I'm at about 65 pounds, and I probably have another 65 to go. Don't know where it
Amazing.
would come off of, but so thank
Amazing.
you. So the purpose of this was really, again, that whole, you are a leadership of yourself,
Yeah.
and the economy is in a weird state right now. I don't even know what to say about it end to end. There's people who are making a ton of money because they are recognizing opportunity, and there are people who are really suffering
Mm-hmm.
because their industries have been hit. I've seen it in our own businesses, and we're now coming out of it because we've learned over the last 7 months. So in this particular one with you, where enterprise carries the most influence in terms of money
Mm-hmm.
and people that they're employing, that combination of business and what people are really passionate about, this is a time, if any, like if you've been displaced, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
go get it. If you can sense that something is off, go after it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is really my purpose of it. And like you said, we have access to so many things that, when I say things, people, lessons, concepts, tools.
Yeah.
How would the everyday person who did not follow the same path that we did have access to them and still have the benefit of the tools and the lessons and the concepts to apply to their own structure and to their
Mm-hmm.
own life? And so that's really where this came together, because I do have corporate and enterprise experience, and this was part of the people that I wanted to reach. Same general message, wellness, right? Wellness. Um, for this one, though, it's like, how do you lead yourself and others?
Yeah.
Very niche. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
motherhood is different. It's you're dealing with somebody, a child that's going to develop cognitively different over time.
Mm-hmm.
Different. It's similar but different in enterprise. I used to have to deal with personalities and stuff. But what are the strategies that are going to work now that didn't work before?
Yeah.
So we've been really, really lucky to work with some really innovative people who have been able to pivot during the pandemic to make sure that their businesses and the people that they employ in those businesses and the families of those people still were able to remain relatively unscathed by the pandemic.
That's great.
So that's really my why. So thank you for asking. And yes, I'm all
Love it. Love your
involved in. I'm very clear about it. very clear about it, and then I'm unclear about so many other things. So the stuff that I'm clear on, I'm going to move. The stuff that I'm not clear on, we'll
Yeah.
figure.
And I think the one thing that you and I have in common is like when we have an idea and that we can get behind it, we move into action. And that's the thing. It's about moving into action. So if you have anything that you're hearing that's like, hey, that sounds like a really good idea, and it sparks an idea that like you want to take action in your own life in some way, whatever it is, it could be your work, it could be with your family, it could be with your personal relationships, your finances. Like I would say just move on it. Like don't overthink it. Like I know I've been in that place where I overthink so much and then 6 months later I'm still thinking about it. And I'm like, but that was a good idea and it starts to wear off. So I do believe that, sharing information is great and like want to empower people to take ownership of themselves. Like if you're in a corporate situation, I know a lot of people, I've spoken to so many people in like my own personally, but also through coaching contacts that, they feel a little bit they're all victims of circumstance, right? Like I can't find a job or all these things, and I'm always of the belief that there's the right job for you out there, and maybe this is the perfect time to reassess where you're at because you know what, something like this happens once in our lifetimes, right? Take this as a blessing, almost like a gift, this pandemic situation. I know many people might not think that way, but it is like, you wouldn't have this obstacle in front of you if you couldn't actually work through it, if you couldn't handle it. So, hopefully, I know, actually, not hopefully, I know with a lot of the tools, the concepts, the people that we are going to be interviewing and sharing, they're definitely going to be able to help you get through those moments, right? And so just make sure that you tune in and then just take away everything that you can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
And
what I.
also feel free to reach out to us. So comment below, and it'll get to us and then we'll figure it out. So if there are leaders that you think that we should be interviewing, please do let us know and we'll reach out to them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm finished for today. I think we've shared so much about ourselves that, I'm hoping people will see where we're coming from an authentic place and tune in next week. So the next episode will be released next week. Tune in and comment below if you want to hear anything more specific. Let us know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm your host, Liza Magcale, and this is Janice Lee. Thank you for joining Fireside Leadership today.
Bye.
Have a great day.